I'm Julie Saunders.
I'm Jan Wilson. Julie and I both have experience as school librarians, and we've worked together as district library leaders.
In each episode, we'll dive into our profession with interviews and meaningful content to inspire you.
The ideas and opinions shared by any host, guest, or listener are their own and do not represent those of any respective school district.
Welcome to Library Exchange. This episode is supported by our friends at Kids Discover. We are sure you remember the beautifully written and illustrated Kids Discover magazines on topics like the American Revolution, ancient Egypt, and ecology.
Now, their digital platform, Kids Discover Online, is fast becoming a favorite for K-8 students. It offers an entire library of science and social studies content with multiple reading levels and a suite of features, making it accessible for every learner.
Ready to try it? Visit kidsdiscover.com/digital to get 60 days of trial access for your entire school. We're doing things a little differently this episode. We're starting out with our key points and then leading you into the interview.
Yeah, we're pre-capping instead of recapping. And that's a word, Julie. Look it up.
Okay, great.
We're doing this for a couple of reasons. One, we want to emphasize some things for you to listen for. And two, our guest, Tiki Love, she's so darn humble that she kind of downplays the steps she took to build her leadership confidence, to step into that role and lead from the library.
Jan and I have strong feelings about what it takes to become a leader in librarianship. A huge part of this is perception, how your role is viewed in your building. If you're not seen as a leader in your school currently, don't worry. It's never too late to turn that around.
Right. And it can take time for that to happen, but you need to start turning around this year. Anyway, okay, so I'm just going to be direct, Julie, because here's the bottom line. If you're not seen as a leader, then collaborations won't happen. And if the teaching staff isn't partnering with you and never sees you in action, then they won't see you as a resource for enriching what they're teaching.
So, how do we start leadership locally? One place is with the local school library media committee. You're already leading it, but are you sharing your professional goals and program vision with the committee? This is a great leadership opportunity to show how your library supports school improvement goals.
Right. And communicating that shared vision for student success is everything.
Hmm.
Julie, this is also another reason to make sure you have diverse perspectives on your media committee. So I think you should say more about that.
Okay. Well, you want a variety of teaching experiences, grade levels, content areas, and backgrounds on your committee. When you bring those people together, one, you get a blend of perspectives that helps the library serve everyone better. And two, those committee members become your library advocates.
hmm Can I say one more thing about this committee before we
Yeah.
move on? Did you say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I hear librarians say that their school library committee only meets virtually and all communication is virtual. They never meet in person. I think those librarians are missing a big leadership opportunity because in-person meetings will allow librarians to be in front of teachers, parents, and at least one school leader who serves on the committee. And they've passed on this. That's just how I
Good
feel.
point.
Just
Good
how I
point.
feel.
Yeah. Another way to get started locally is to meet each year with new staff to introduce yourself as an instructional partner. Take this opportunity to share a few successful collaborations. Librarians need to consistently highlight their instructional role. Show your expertise and leadership in teaching information and media literacy skills. This is something that librarians own as a focus area and can really shine as a valuable member of the instructional staff. As you'll hear Tiki say in the episode, she says, we're doing the work as librarians, but how can we make sure people see the work?
Yeah, you've said this many times before, Julie, but to make sure people see that work, we need to reflect on our individual schools because every school is unique, as you know,
Mhm.
full of different personalities. So take a few minutes to think about the teachers in your building who are leaders. What makes them stand out? Why do others respect them? Is it their reliability, their knowledge, the fact that they are forward thinking? And as you and I know, they're the teachers who present on professional learning days. They stay positive, they run clubs, and they're usually the teachers that school leaders go to for honest feedback.
So, to match that, you have to ask yourself, do you solve problems like an administrator, like a leader? If your library suddenly needs to be used for an emergency like a broken AC unit in a classroom, how do you respond? This is not the time to debate with an administrator about the impact on your lesson plans. It is the time to say, I'll handle rescheduling my classes. Let me get the space ready. Leave the knee jerk victim mentality at the door.
Yet we've all been there.
Mhm.
Besides solving problems, do you communicate like a leader? Let's say you're asked to sub in a classroom for a teacher who had to leave for some reason. Are you responding as a team player? And that should sound something like, you need my help. I do need to shift a few things, but we can make this work.
Listeners, those are just two examples, and Jan and I want to acknowledge the reality here. We know many of you are asked constantly to sub or cover lunches, but that's exactly why being proactive matters. How do we keep those types of requests to a minimum? Number one, don't work in a silo. Be proactive about sharing lessons and events with school leaders, whether it's on social media, a shared calendar, or newsletter.
And another way to break out of that silo is to lead professional learning sessions at your school. And don't wait for someone to ask you. I said that slowly on purpose. Offer a few options to your leadership team and see what happens.
Being seen as an instructional leader often just means being visible. Make sure you're stepping outside your four walls. Involving yourself in student activities and school events builds relationships.
Yeah, I know some people are thinking right now, hey, school activities and events require time beyond school hours. So we're not saying you need to attend everything, but as Julie says, ROI, return
My
on
favorite.
investment, yeah, it's worth it. The ROI is worth it. Connecting with staff and students outside of the school day leads to increased interaction during the school day.
As we close our pre-cap, remember that once you have a leadership mindset, consider leadership opportunities at the district, state, or national level. Now it's time for our discussion with Tiki, so keep listening. You're going to hear how presenting at conferences and mentoring new librarians helped Tiki change her own mindset and become a leader beyond her school.
Enjoy!
Welcome, everyone. It's getting closer to the beginning of the school year for most of us, so we wanted to air this episode to get your wheels turning.
Yeah, so Julie, I'm going to need a little WD-40 because my wheels are slow. Okay, I didn't want to do that joke, everyone, but they talked me into it. Okay, seriously, Julie and I talk a lot about the role of librarians and how important it is to be seen as an instructional leader in your school. Because when you're seen as a leader, more teacher collaborations and partnerships form because you're able to demonstrate your knowledge and expertise.
Exactly. If teachers aren't collaborating with you and bringing their classes to your library, they can't see your value. Plus, when you take on leadership opportunities and have a leader mindset, it shifts your relationship with your administration. They start viewing you as a partner in school success, not just an extra.
Yes, librarians, grab those opportunities. And our guest today is an example of that. Tatanisha Love, or Tiki as she prefers to be called, brings 30 years of experience as a former high school language arts teacher, as well as an elementary and middle school librarian.
As a school librarian, Tiki was named Teacher of the Year in 2021, and she was a finalist for School Library Journal's School Librarian of the Year in 2025. Welcome to Library Exchange, Tiki.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Okay, Tiki, before we get started on our leadership topic, will you share about where you've spent your 30 years in education? And congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. So I started out, my dad loves for me to talk about grad school, but we're not going to count that 'cause I was just interning, but he says always count Massachusetts. So I started there as an intern doing a program called Me Step at UMass Amherst. And when I finished that grad program, I went to North Carolina and taught for 1 year in Wake County, North Carolina. And then I came to Baltimore County, and I've been here ever since. And in Baltimore County, I started off, like you mentioned, as a high school English teacher. So I trekked through various schools in Baltimore County. One thing about me is I'm a daughter of a retired Marine, so I like to move around. So I made sure that I moved around from different school to different school, and from the different schools that I went to throughout the county, I was able to encounter different people and different students and parents and communities. And somewhere during my 10th year, actually, that's not true. Before my 10th year, there was a cohort program. There was a discussion about the number of retired librarians that was about to happen, and people were concerned. So, Della Curtis, who was one of the supervisors for Baltimore County, she created a cohort program. And I applied and was accepted, but then I selected a different leadership program and did that for a few years and then changed my mind once I looked behind the gold curtain, saw what leadership and men was all about. And I was like, nope, that's not for me. And so then I spoke with another librarian at a school where I was an English teacher, Fran Glick, and I said, I'm thinking about getting back into the library cohort. And she said, hey, you should. You'd be really good at it. So I applied, got back into it, and that's where I've been ever since. And so I've done different schools as a library media specialist, and I ended up my what is now considered my last year on the elementary level. And there we go. I think that's about 30 years in 3 minutes.
Wow, that's a fulfilling,
Yeah.
career,
Well,
amazing.
Julie, you remember what I call that when people work at all three levels?
The trifecta?
The trifecta.
Mm, I
Right?
like that.
Yeah, there
Okay.
you go. And now a word from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Mackin. For over 40 years, Mackin has provided pre K through 12th grade libraries and classrooms with access to over 4 million printed and digital fiction and nonfiction titles.
The 26-time multi-award winning digital content management system, Mackin Via, along with divisions Mackin Library, Mackin Classroom, Mackin Maker, Mackin Learning, and the brand new whole school resource management system, Mackin Vision, help to create a truly unique and robust educational resource company that schools and educators have relied on year after year.
For more information, visit mackin.com today.
So, Tiki, you've mentioned before that early on you faced a challenge that so many school librarians face, feeling like you weren't being seen as a leader in your building. What was the turning point, and how did you use your library program to change that perception?
So it stemmed from I had a new administrator, and I was doing pretty much the same program that I had for the library program. But however, before that time, it wasn't where I would go in and, oh, I'm doing this and show, electronically what I was doing, or invite them in. It was just assumed on my end that they would see what I was doing and they would see that I was viable as an employee or a staff member. And fortunately, the principal at that time was a little bit myopic in his view of what a librarian could do. And then also there are a few other things. I was also part of the faculty council. So then there was discussion, and the faculty council, real quick, is like our union representatives in our school building. So then there was discussion about changing my schedule because it's flexible scheduling on the middle school level. And there was a discussion to revamp it to where it was more like an elementary fixed type of schedule where I would be having classes throughout the day instead of being able to go into the classrooms and working with the community, etc. So I spoke with my supervisor, who I mentioned earlier, Della Curtis, and she was like, Tiki, part of that's because you're not advocating for yourself. You're not showing what you're doing, and you have to really speak up for yourself and make sure people see what you're doing in the library and take it outside. So that stuck with me. And from that point on, I was really focused on not just making sure that I was doing work because I was always doing the work, but making sure that people saw the work that I was doing. So then I started doing different programs outside the library, bringing more resources in, highlighting those, whether it was at that point, Twitter. was a big thing for me. So I was using Twitter and then Facebook and some other social media, and then just making sure people could see the different things that were going on in the library, and also making sure that the parents and the other staff members talking about the different things that the library program was doing for them as well as the students. And then I would put together different videos, and I forgot what I used at that time, but I used some type of video format to put the pictures and the recordings of their voices, and the different things we did in the library, and present those to the principal so that he could see some of the great things that were going on in the library. And then from there, it just continued to grow, and that's something that always stuck with me when my supervisor, Della Curtis, was saying, "You're not advocating for yourself. You're not showing what you're doing in the library."
Mhm.
So I think too, you had mentioned something about some professional development that you shared, something about expanding the library beyond the walls and libraries shouldn't be an island. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So at that time also I was looking for different quite honestly, I was looking for different things that I could do to make sure I could shine a spotlight on what I was doing in the library. So there's two things I could talk about. There was a program, or rather a conference, that the Black Caucus of the American Library Association had in Atlanta, Georgia, called the NCAL conference. So I applied to present information about that, the different things I was doing with project-based learning in the library, and how I was building a reading community, but by doing different things using project-based learning elements and connecting it to research. And so when I was accepted to do that presentation, I went to the NCAL conference through BCALA, and that was like a not just the aha moment for me, but it also seemed to make me feel like I was more of a leader, because people start seeing me as a leader as a result of that, especially BCLA. I was encouraged after that meeting with different people on the executive board to apply to be on their executive board. And so then that led to me doing different things for different boards that way. And then also, the big thing for me was making sure that whenever I saw an opportunity for an educator, it might not necessarily have been something for a librarian, but like there was a sustainability program, the Walton State Sustainability Program at Arizona State University. And when I had a teacher who was interested in doing that, she was looking for a partner. I was like, yes, I would say yes to a lot of things instead of saying no, because I didn't want to. Remember how I said the principal at that time was a little myopic in his view? In some ways, I might have been a little bit myopic in my view as well.
Mhm.
So by me going to different programs and expanding my, idea of what I could do with the library program to make it come to life, that tended to help quite a bit as well. So it was different opportunities that helped me. And then when you mentioned the presentation I did for Baltimore County at the time, and actually I think I did it at another conference outside of Baltimore County as a presentation where I talked about no librarian is an island, and I talked about the different resources, not just and there's nothing wrong with, focusing on the library and your community and your administrators and teachers, etc. But involving the parents, because in leadership they talk about stakeholders. So
Mhm.
you bring in your parents, you bring in the different businesses in the area. We had a partnership with the Baltimore County Public Library because during one of our PDs they talked about how we could utilize the Baltimore County Public Library as a partner. So then I would reach out to the branch that was connected to my schools, and I would say, "Hey, can we do something with the book club?" Because that was an issue where didn't have enough books for the book club. And so then they would come in, whether it was joined into the library. It started off as meeting in the library once a month, and then it segued to different schools during lunchtime, etc. So it's just a lot of things. By saying yes, and then also changing my view, it helped to change the view that others had of the library program itself.
Thank you for all of that. But Tiki, you didn't stop at the local level. Will you describe how you kept growing to become a leader at the district and state levels?
Yes. So one thing that led to that was everything was always based on a need. So when I was working with Mazel, we had an advocacy committee, and we saw that there was a need for getting more librarians involved. A lot of times it might have been formal or informal, whether it was through Mazel or through my school district, working with librarians to help them to see that they could be advocates. And real quick, a lot of times, especially gosh, I'm trying to get the years together. But back in the past, advocacy was almost like a bad word because
Mm.
everyone was like, I can't do that. And so it was just, small steps getting people to realize through some sessions that we had through Maslow, and then also in my school district doing presentations where I would talk about ways that we could be pro advocates. A lot of times people talk about being proactive, but we wanted to talk about pro advocacy. So, working with the advocacy committee, we came up with different examples of ways that people could be pro advocates and also offered opportunities that led to, I think, something that we're going to talk about a little bit later in our state of Maryland with school librarians. And then working in my district, informally working with librarians, even up until this past year, talking about ways that they can speak to the school board, build constituents who would like to speak up for what the school libraries are doing, connecting those partnerships, which I think we're going to talk about as well. In the state of Maryland, we have a great partnership of not just school libraries, but public libraries, academic libraries, etc., that work together. And so together, I think we make sure that we work to build those relationships and those mentor opportunities so that more librarians can advocate for themselves in their school library programs.
Wow, that's amazing. So it sounds like you really helped other librarians find their voice and
I
leadership.
try. Yes.
Absolutely. So, your leadership journey expanded into organizational roles, serving on the ALA Executive Board, NCAAL, a past president of the Maryland Association of School Librarians, and current president elect of Citizens for Maryland Libraries. For listeners who look at a resume like yours and wonder, how does that happen? How did those opportunities happen?
Yeah. Gotta wipe my
Yeah.
brow. Good Lord.
You know what the funny thing is, and I always forget to mention this. So when we were in COVID, I made like a little post-it list of things I wanted to do, and so I'll just go down a list of the things, and then I'll tell you which ones I was able to accomplish. I said I wanted to write more. I said I wanted to learn how to beatbox, learn a foreign language, and serve. And so I went gangbusters with the service part. The writing part, because I meant to say like for fun or, write a story or poetry, it became more of writing about advocacy and letters and requesting this, which was fine, but I was doing a lot of writing, newsletters, etc. And so based on all those things, it led to me saying yes to a lot of things, especially sitting at home when we were isolated a lot of the time. I was like, well, what can I do? And I would, join this committee and that committee, and then work with different people and make sure that different things were being shared. So every time I said yes to a different committee in ALA or MASL, which is the Maryland Association for School Libraries, that led to me actually getting a phone call from Jane Terby for the Citizens for Maryland Libraries. And she was like, oh, I heard about the work that you're doing with MASL. We would love to have a school librarian on our board. Have you heard about Citizens for Maryland Libraries? And I said, no. So she told me about it. I thought about it. I said, well, I have a little bit of time on my schedule. I guess I can apply because, she was saying we only have like quarterly meetings and we have a large meeting once a year. So I joined that board. And so a lot of times when I would say yes to an opportunity to be of service, it just segued into something else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Amazing.
do like what you said earlier too about the word advocacy like scares some librarians, because I think
Yes.
they view it as a protest or I'm
Yes.
challenging. And so I
Yes.
like that you said you all use the term pro advocate or pro
Right.
advocacy, which puts a little twist on it so that people can understand.
Being proactive and not reactive to the situation, getting ahead of some of those incorrect talking points that are out there about what we do.
Tiki, it has been a pleasure having you on Library Exchange. Thank you for sharing your leadership journey with us.
Thank you so much. And I really hope I was able to inspire some other librarians if they're not already involved in their local library communities, whether it's a friend or a support group or their school library association or even ALA, because we all need to. We need more people to take part in making sure that people know the great work that we're doing.
Oh, thank you. And you've definitely given our listeners practical advice for stepping out of the library island into school leadership. We are grateful for your time today.
Thank you.
Make sure to visit our website at www.libraryexchangepodcast.com.
There, you'll find episode notes, resource links, and a link to our Etsy store. Plus, you can submit a question or inspiring story that might be featured on a future episode.
For guest clips, episode reminders, and trivia giveaways, follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Library Exchange and on TikTok at library.exchange.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We can't wait to have you back for our next episode.